Yes, yes, yes. That was our great grand master teacher, Dr. John Henry Clark. Rest in peace. Giving us some much needed historical reorientation. Anyway, this is Bro Diallo Show, broadcasting straight out of the sanctuary of hypocrisy that is the city of Chirac, state of Illinois. I'm here today of, where we at? Man, January 23rd in the year of your Lord 2019. I'm living in the anarcho libertarian paradise that America has become now that we are operating free of government tyranny. Let's cut the music. Cut, deep. Cut the music. Now, I am broadcasting on AM 1680 here in the city of Chirac, Q4 Studios in Ukrainian Village, Chicago, Ukrainian Village neighborhood. You can also find me at TuneIn app, iTunes Radio. You just search Q4, QUE the number 4, or at q4.org, QUE the number 4.org. You can also find me broadcasting from time to time excerpts of my show on Facebook Live, Diallo Kenyatta, and or YouTube, Diallo Kenyatta YouTube. I'm all over the place. I'm inescapable. I just want to talk about the government shutdown. Well, a few things. I mean, it's really not much left to say about Trump. If you have not reached a definitive conclusion, well, I guess there is a lot to say about Trump because I can't even say this. I was about to say if you haven't really come to a definitive conclusion about your position on Trump and Trump's positions, Trump's behavior, and Trump's overall agenda, then what's left to say? But unfortunately, there's still an alarming number of black people that still have some type of delusion about Trump, that still buy into Trump's rhetoric, lies, and deceits that he told on the campaign trail. Some black people really believe that Trump was a viable alternative to the Democrats and the Democratic agenda. I still find black people talking about Trump is a builder. Trump was going to revive the economy. They believe Trump's promises that he told to the black community, lies that he told about telling us that we have nothing to lose to vote for him, and that he had a plan to revive the black community, to bring jobs back, to take back the jobs we lost to the immigrants. There's still an alarming number of black people who believe that. Well, the Washington Post came out with a verifiable survey that it sent some of its journalists and researchers and statisticians. And they did an assessment of Trump's first 2 years in office to find out how many falsehoods or straight up lies did he tell. And they came to the conclusion that Trump, in his first 2 years in office, has told over 18, and no, I'm sorry. I'm over. I don't want to false news y'all. They said that Trump has told over 8,000 lies. 8,000 lies in 2 years. And in his second year, he told 6,000. His first year, he's told about 2,000 lies, and his following year, this 2017, he told 6,000 lies. So he was just getting warmed up. And at this pace, they have found him to be one of the most dishonest politicians in the modern era. And I mean, this is not a shock to me. I didn't gasp. I mean, when I do take time to read about Trump, read Trump, or listen to Trump, or what people say about Trump, it's all lies. It's all lies. Now, what many politicians would do, because we've come to associate dishonesty with politicians, but it gets kind of frustrating joining in this anti-politician sentiment that people have, because I know many people who are anti-government, who are anti-politicians, who are anti-Democrat. Their anti-government Democrat politician views are not their own. Those are indoctrinated views. implanted views by the multinational corporations. Many of these people that I meet that have these disfavorable views about the political system and the political processes are not people who have educated themselves in in civics, in history, who don't have a real grip of exactly how politics functions historically or in a contemporary sense. They just know the overall rhetoric. I literally have black people come to me spewing right wing rhetoric about the government. And I also find that many of these anti government, anti politician, anti Democratic Party individuals have no critique of the economic system. And since the election of Ronald Reagan, the economic system, the private sector, has fully had a bloodless coup d'etat, starting with the Reagan administration. There was a bloodless coup d'etat where the private industry took over the apparatus of the state. They don't see this. Many of these anti-government individuals have a very favorable view of the private sector. They can name all the politicians they hate. They can't name the CEOs who are raping the economy, destroying the ecosystem, raiding the treasury, writing the policies that are imposed by the owned, bought, and paid for politicians. They just say, oh, government is inefficient, government is incompetent, government is corrupt. And you're saying the right thing, but for the wrong reasons. So this black anti-government stance is kind of like when you find a black person who has Christian morality, where you find a black person who has Islamic morals. Like, it seems right on the surface, but at the core of their ideas, there's a rotten core to their ideas. It's rotten, it's putrid, it's anti-black. So they build up some good candy coating around this rotten core. So yes, there's absolutely no reason for black people to be patriotic. There's no reason for black people to have any sense of loyalty to any political party or political processes, any trust, belief, or love for anything related to the state. But when that legitimate critique, when that legitimate criticism of the state does not come from an African-centered point of view or African worldview, an understanding of African history, African world relations, and the larger African, Pan-African agenda. But when your criticisms of the state literally comes up out of Rush Limbaugh, Fox News, Alex Jones, Behold a Pale Horse, The Unseen Hand, Conspirators Hierarchy, when your criticisms of the state come from the white anti-government slant, from the corporate private sector, who's the main goal of the corporate private sector. But we're going to get more into that later. I'm just saying, a lot of times you reach the right conclusion, but you take the wrong path. And if you get to the right conclusion based on the wrong path, many of the solutions that you call for, I ain't gonna vote. Or if you don't vote, I'm gonna vote libertarian. You know, I'm gonna support this right wing agenda because the so-called left wing don't love us. Or Umar, you know, or Farrakhan for some time, or even now Beast Mode. Marshawn Lynch is now, he's emerging as a black icon, if not a black leader, a black influencer, saying black people detach from the political system. And all these people I just named, the same people that tell us to detach from the political system, the same people that tell us to detach from the political system, are the same people who are opening businesses, talking about buying black, opening land and working and putting our money together. Like, if your critique of the political system does not extend and go even harder in the economic system, then you're playing a manipulation. You're not trying to enlighten people, you're trying to manipulate people. And it's a big difference between awakening people and manipulating people or giving people certain information and guiding people to certain actions that serve you versus guiding people, giving people information and guiding people to serve the whole, to serve the collective, to serve their own interests. But I digress. The government is shut down. 33 days? You have to check me on that. I believe it's 33 days. The longest government shutdown. And you have some people who are feeling it. You have many people who don't feel it. I would say one thing: stay off of airplanes for as long as you can for the next year. It's going to take, because the air traffic controller, TSA, all of the federal government oversees transportation, even though private corporations extract the profit. The public pays for the security. The public pays for the air traffic controllers to keep the airways safe. But anyway, public-private partnerships are usually public-private pimping, exploitation. But I digress. I continue to digress. I would say, if you ain't gotta fly, don't fly. I know some of y'all ball out. Some of y'all living the kind of life that only Instagram could give us an insight to, because y'all just so fly. I understand that. Good for you. Enjoy your blessings. But I would just say, man, you got these air traffic controllers where, air traffic controllers are mandated to retire at 55. They can't, because it's such a stressful job. It's such an intense job. So, they tell them, you got to retire. You got to fall back. But now the air traffic controllers aren't being paid. They're showing up after working an Uber job. They driving Uber. They in the gig economy. They out here trying to hustle up some bread because they haven't been paid in 2 cycles now. Today is a payday, federal payday, payroll. Or is it today or tomorrow? Somebody get on the phone and call the irritated genie who used to be a federal employee, and ask him when's the next pay cycle. It's coming up in the next couple of days. And so this will be the second full pay cycle that the federal employments have been furloughed or forced to work without pay. And they hustling, they grinding. So, the people doing airport security, people doing food inspection, people out here trying to turn a dollar into 15 cents, or wait, how does it go? Make a dollar out of 15 cents, a dime and a nickel. I don't know. It's real. It's real in the field. And I know some of y'all black libertarians and some of you black anarchists really think, oh, we don't need the government. Well, we about to find out. We're well on the process of finding out. And I love how y'all talk about how we don't need the government. When y'all standing there and you're driving down the street in your government inspected cars to buy your government FDA approved food, and then go to the pharmacy and get your FDA inspected and approved pharmaceuticals. And then you get on the government, funded interstate highway. And even the home you live in has built by standards imposed by the state government and inspected and approved for occupancy. And you turn on your faucet with your municipal water system. I ain't saying you don't need the government, but the government has, long before you were born, inserted itself into every aspect of our lives. And I don't mean Obama. This is another aspect, but I'm not talking about Obama's mass surveillance. I'm not talking about old freaky deaky Obama spying on our phones and our webcams illegally. Obama should be under indictment. Obama should be in jail. But ain't no justice. It's just us. But moving on, I'm just saying, in other ways. And if you don't like those, I'd really like to see. There are some people out there, some true libertarians who go out and like to, make their own vehicles, who don't like to follow federal or state guidelines for building, construction, for food, preparation and service, for automobiles, even for tools and clothing. They don't want to anything, so they go out into the wilderness and make their own stuff. We don't often hear from them again. Now, I for one, I'm not an anarchist. I'm not anti-state, but that's me. Maybe I'll get a black libertarian or a black anarchist. I just hate bringing idiots on the show just for fun. When I have people come on here, I like to say, bring people on that really have something viable to say. But sometimes I guess we want to hear how the other half rationalizes things, why they is the way they be, or why they be the way they is. Maybe y'all let me know. Y'all want some black libertarians, black anarchists? Bring on some umatarians, some no votes, people who believe that we can shun the political organizations but still have economic development. I can get them on the air. Y'all can hear. I did bring a black Hebrew Israelite on the show, simply because the black Hebrew Israelite. Some people didn't believe me when I said the Hebrew Israelites were saying that, were asserting that they didn't believe that God ordained, that they believed God ordained the slave trade. And I was saying essentially that the black Hebrew Israelites have the identical ideology as the slave traders, as what they call what do they call those people, that Jewish book. It escapes me right now. I can't. It's gonna eat at my brain. But there's certain rabbinical teachings and Catholic and Protestant teachings that said that God cursed. It's called the Hamitic curse. It's called the Hamitic curse. Ham, Shem, and Japheth were the children of Noah, and because of Ham laughed at his father's naked drunkenness, he was cursed to be dark skinned, big lips, long penis, and to serve his brothers Shem and Japheth. And the children of Ham would serve the children of Shem, and so they would call black people children of Ham. And some even people say the dark skin is called the mark of Cain. That us having dark skin is evidence for other races to know that we are the people to be enslaved. But that's what white folks were saying. That our enslavement was ordained by God. That our enslavement is punishment for the sins of our ancestors. And the black Hebrews say this too. The only difference between the black Hebrews and the white enslavers is that the white enslaver says that God punished us because he sees us as less than in his eyes. God sold us into slavery to punish us because we are less in his eyes. We are less than the other races. The Hebrews say God sold us into punishment because we are more. He had higher standards for us that we failed to meet. And so God so loved us that he, and I always ask the black Hebrews, if God sold us and wanted black people to come into slavery, why did he allow whites to be in slavery for 1,400 years? Almost 1,000 years longer than black people, enslaved by other whites and under the feudal system. Why did he allow peasants and serfs to essentially have no human rights, to be branded, to be raped, to be worked, to have the fruits of their labor extracted without any compensation by their feudal lords? Did God know we were going to sin so long that he allowed that white people in Europe to rehearse slavery and genocide and oppression and systematic rape, so that by the time they came to fulfill God's will on the continent? And then I asked them also, why did God allow for the extinction of the Arawaks, the Kalinagos, and many Native American nations, Aboriginal nations? Why? And why did he allow India? Did India also sin because millions upon millions were Indians were starved by the British? I just asked him about all the collateral damage. If the slave trade was a divine prophecy because God wanted to punish his chosen people, the children of the tribe of Judah, Yahweh's chosen people, if he wanted slavery was strictly to punish black people, I asked him about the mass extinction, the melting polar ice caps, all of the animals as a result of white people enslaving Africans, extracting the wealth of the world, and establishing global white domination and global hegemony. What's up with all of the other collateral damage that had nothing to do? I'm like, has the polar bear, the chosen bear of God, is that why the polar bear is going extinct? Is the black rhino extinct because God is like all things black gotta suffer? And they just tell me it's all in God's plan, and I'm like, right. And you say it's written. Show me. It doesn't make sense. I'm like, there's so much collateral damage from this divine holy prophecy. God's gonna blow up all of creation to punish us for something that people we've never met did. Just doesn't make sense. But anyway, I had people on my show talking this kind of nonsense, and there are a lot of black people that believe this kind of nonsense, and it's mainly prominent in the black Hebrew, black Hebrew Israelites. But there are some black people that for a long time believed. Even the Nation of Islam talked about black people having nappy hair because we sinned, and that if we, in our true state, our hair is just straight as our eyebrows. And the Nation of Islam promoted colorism heavy and greatly favored Eurocentric or Western Aryan features as closer to God. Not sure, I hope ain't no Muslims listening to me. They're just such aggressive cultists. I mean, I just had these two Nation of Islam cultists on my Twitter feed. Just all this fallacious. You just can't debate them. And I can't believe for years the black community ran around, but I don't want to get into that. But let me say, for years, black community ran around acting like Islam. If you a black person who is, wrapped up in Islam is somehow more conscious, more pro-black than a black Christian. That's some real good branding and marketing on Farrakhan and Elijah's bad. That's some really good marketing or some real thorough deception. Either way, marketing is deception. But I digress. Talking about the black Hebrew Israelites, in D.C. we had these white kids and Native American bumping heads, and the thing went viral. The MAGA Catholic school students that came to Washington, D.C. for the Right to Life March. You had a bunch of white kids in MAGA hats marching to save fetuses. I don't know how you can support Make America Great Again, a violent, vicious, genocidal, ecocidal empire, and talk about your pro-life. But hey, white folks say it, then it shall be done. But anyway, and then you had a Native American elder that they keep telling us is a Vietnam vet, which I think is truly tragic. And he's not a Vietnam vet. He's a Vietnam era veteran. And you got to read between the lines. So when they call someone a Vietnam era veteran, that means they were in the military during the Vietnam War, but they did not go to Vietnam War. They didn't go kill no gooks. They didn't go overseas to directly spill blood for the empire and commit massacres of Vietnamese men, women, and children. Now, Colin Powell, he's a Vietnam vet. He's got blood on his hands. He helped cover up the My Lai massacre. But this Native American elder, that dude, he's a Vietnam era veteran. But still, we respect our vets. Thank him for his service, right? All of that. This is a militarist empire, so, we venerate soldiers. The idea of soldiers. We can step over soldiers or veterans in the streets, but we still love the concept, the idea of a soldiers, even if we hate soldiers themselves and don't really compensate soldiers for the atrocities they commit on our behalf. I hate how this is crooked. Camera's all crooked. Look like King Kong. Y'all know where that come from? Slum Village. Numbers look crooked like King Kong shook it. Anyway, old school hip hop. Anyway, I was just adjusting my camera because I gotta look good out here, you know what I'm saying? got a little nice. But I continue to digress because I'm coming up to something. I'm getting somewhere. And I hopefully we'll have enough time we can return to the Farrakhan lecture because, I mean, Dr. Clark speaking on Farrakhan and Yulana, Mr. Kwanzaa Karinga. But, as I was saying, this dude, this Native American era, he was a Vietnam era veteran, which I think is a shame. You know, you go and wear the flag of the people who stole your land. But we all know the tragedy of Native American vets and black vets. But anyway, the Hebrew Israelites, they say, this is what the Native American elder said, that he picked up the drum and started chanting because he wanted to get in between what he called black racism and white racism. Apparently what happened in the National Mall, there was a March for Life, and all these white conservatives, all these white racists, and Dr. Claude Anderson told us over 20 years ago, conservative is a code word for racist. There's no way you could be a white conservative and not be a racist. So all these white racists came to March for Life of fetuses. All these pro-life. And when you hear pro-life, that's another code word for pro-control, pro-power over women. They don't give a damn about life. They only care about controlling women and dictating to women. Because there are several lives that they have the power, because it's a constitutional right for a woman to get an abortion. That's why they got Neil Gorsuch and that other, who's that beer guzzling, lying ass, perjured Supreme Court justice who, now them dudes on the Supreme Court. Now they're hoping that they can remove that constitutional right from women and remove the right to abortion. But as for now, abortion is a constitutional right, like gun. Now when you talk the Second Amendment, that's sacred. But the 13th, 14th, 15th, the 21st, the other amendments, to hell with them amendments. So insane people that thinks that if it's a constitutional amendment, it's a sacred thing that you can't touch unless it's one I don't agree with. Then we can fight against it and rule against it and try to undermine it. These contradictory scumbags. But I digress. The Supreme Court said women can have an abortion. These dudes like, I don't want women to have an abortion. But set aside, you can't stop abortion. Because the feminists want abortion on demand without apology, which is another thing I don't understand. How can you have a medical system and a progressive movement, quote unquote, it's not a progressive, it's truly regressive, reactionary movement, but feminists, why do they call for abortion on demand and without apology, but they don't call for pap smears on demand without apology? Breast cancer screening on demand without apology. Child care on demand without apology. There's all these other things that women need. There's all these other things that women suffer for lack of. But the only thing they want on demand, I don't hear them say that about anything else. I agree. Women on abortion on demand without apology. But I think dental care, dental coverage, eyes glass coverage, medications, needed medications, and medical procedures. All things related. Housing on demand without apology. Education on demand without, I think that on demand without apology thing is great. I don't know why the feminists don't expand that beyond abortion. Could there be some other insidious aspect agenda to it? Y'all tell me. Because when I first heard it, I'm like, wow, that sounds great. On demand without apology. All fundamental human needs, all fundamental human rights, on demand without apologies. Yeah. They said abortion. We want it on demand without apology. And I'm like, can we get some other things? You know, can we expand that a little bit? Nope. But what do I know? I can't mansplain that. I don't care. It could be mansplain, womansplain, intersexual splain. Explain that to me. Why is that such a cornerstone? I digress. But anyway, these dudes are marching for life. The black Hebrew Israelites are down in D.C. I don't know. We got them here in Chicago. We got them in every city I've lived in, especially in New York. You had the black Hebrew Israelites. And if you ever go up to their little, they set up these little podiums and they come out here and read. They come out there and finger read the Bible. And dudes be like, oh, open the book, chapter, and then the guys go, and they stand out there and read and yell at people and bark at people. And what I see it as, these are some very frustrated black men, rightfully frustrated, rightfully enraged, rightfully hostile. They got a right to be hostile. Their people are being persecuted, to quote the philosopher Flavor the Flav. So, but they've channeled their righteous anger, their righteous justified outrage through one of the most regressive, toxic ideologies. Judaism and later Protestantism, Catholicism, Christianity, and Judaism are two of the most violent, toxic, mental, psychological systems. When you find some random, greatest atrocities across the globe, you find that there's either Judeo-Christian, Abrahamic thought, even when they talk about atheists in the communist Soviet Union. And when you really look at Joseph Stalin, what was he? What did he study? Eastern Orthodox religion. When you look at it, they try to pretend like Stalin was such an atheist. No, Stalin was brought up with biblical teachings. And he always held that you know, man, the concepts of man's dominion, that's not an atheistic teaching. The atheists don't conclude that man has dominion. That's a Judeo-Christian teaching. But anyway, they've channeled their righteous outrage into this mythological, false, insane doctrine and belief system. And it gives them some ego boost. So you say, I'm a slave, but I'm a slave because God ordained it, because I am most beloved. I am the selective God. And God has ordained that I come to this land in bondage so that I can atone for my sin. And when I atone for my sin and I return to the bosom of Yahweh, and now I am awakened, I am enlightened, I have a rationale for my oppression. And I have a rationale for my oppression that puts me above my oppressors, even though it doesn't change my economic relationship to my oppressor, my military relationship, my social standing in the larger society. It doesn't do anything, but it's a psychological trick. It's a Jedi mind trick. I'm sorry, a Yahweh mind trick. And then I can dress up in these costumes. And so instead of engaging in real protracted struggle, in nation building, constructive, revolutionary action, I can go into delusions. I can play cowboys and Indians, good guys versus bad guys, Superman versus Lex Luthor, the Power Rangers versus the evil aliens that come to take my planet. And if you find many of these black men, they get caught up in these cults, and then you can take, we're picking on the Hebrew Israelites, but you also got the Nation of Islam, the Nuwabians, the Asar Set Society. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. All these brothers that followed him behind Dr. Sabi. You find that when you were born into a world and you're seen as subhuman, and you get on an elevator and people start to clutch their purses, you're just walking down the street trying to get to where you're going, and you see people get nervous and start to shuffle and cross the street. You're standing on the corner to cross the street, and people pull up at the corner and lock their doors. Oh, it's something to be black. And it's literally a psychological death by 1,000 microscopic microaggression, micro insults. And then you have an emotional response, but no academic understanding. So I understand why these brothers would want to dress up in metal studs and these crazy ass costumes, grow out their beards, and go stand on a corner and rant and rave against white and blackie and yellowy. They rant and rave. They hate everybody. that ain't, falling into the religious. I fully understand it. And hell, if that's all they did, I'm like, hey, that's therapeutic. Because black folks, y'all do the same thing. These brothers standing out on the corner screaming ain't no different than y'all doing the Holy Ghost dance in the tabernacle. They used to always write about slaves in our worship. When slaves would worship, it would just be an emoting. Because you can't express yourself. You can't articulate your positions. You can't develop yourself intellectually. You can never escape the insult. Your very being, everything, your being is under constant oppression. So when the master says, I'll give you niggers 2 hours every Sunday to worship, and I will allow one of you, you pick one of your old niggers that I can't work anymore, I'll let him be a minister, and I'll teach him some passages from the Bible. Hell, I'll even let you have the drum. I'll give you these old tambourines, some old, wooden stools to bang on. And black people would just let it all out, all that frustrations, all the time you wanted to cut master's throat, all the time you wanted to spit in the stew, all the time you wanted to take that white baby that you had to suckle at your breast and slam it on the floor, dash it on the stones. And you didn't do it. You just kept on keeping on so that you and I could get here and watch football games. They survived and endured the worst atrocities any decrepit human mind could think of. They fought so hard for us to come into being, to be born, to be cultivated, to be developed, to be grown up, so we could watch football. That's how we repay them. But anyway, so when Sunday came, we let it all out. We couldn't direct it at the master. We couldn't direct it at the institutions, at the head slave, at the house. We could only direct our frustrations toward the sky. And they said black people would worship themselves to exhaustion. They would scream until they fainted. They would dance until they passed out. And they were drenched with sweat. They said they prayed and worshiped harder than they worked. It wasn't because we were more spiritual than anybody else. It's because we had no other outlets. We had no intellectual outlet. We had no political outlet. We were not allowed to conceptualize society and build towards that society. We weren't even allowed to build basic, real human connection with one to the other. Because, sometimes these sadistic white people would sell you off. They saw you getting too close, they'd sell your woman off. They'd sell you off. Or if I get some real emotional attachment to this woman, one day she could get called up to the big house for the night and rape my woman, rape my child, my son or daughter, or rape me. So the only outlet we had was to emote to the sky. Oh, Lord God, oh! And you go to a black worship, even white people to this day, white people literally get tickets. They fly in from Scandinavia. They fly up from Uruguay. And they come on tour. And they come into these black houses of worship to watch this slave ritual continue. The Holy Ghost. And it's just still black people who are still in the state of slavery, who still have no institutional power, who still control no resources. We got some cars now, we got some houses, we got some titles, we got a little book learning. But we're still as vulnerable to our oppressors today as we are now. They do with us as they will. They shoot our children in the street, and they promote the murderous, homicidal cop. They let Zimmerman walk the streets and mock us. They take our greatest artists, some of our most talented people, and weaponize their talent against us. Turn them into minstrels, creating artwork that degrades and dehumanizes us. So we still slaves, even though we have what they call plausible deniability. We have the illusion of freedom. We have the idea that we too could be Jay and Bay. We too could be Will Smith and Jada Pinkett if we just work hard enough, even though the institutional structures have to have a large underclass in order to support a small upper class. But I digress. But they come and see us because they've never seen anything like it. And we like to make fun of white folks and their corny little uncoordinated worship services. They don't know how to get down. So I understand. So a lot of y'all who mock the black Hebrew Israelites, y'all engaged in the same thing. Y'all do the same stuff for the same reasons, just under different circumstances. So anyway, the black Hebrews were there. So you had the Life March in D.C., you had the Native American March. They're marching for property rights and, asking the white man yet again, are you going to stop this genocide against my people? Nope. Okay, we'll be back next year to ask again. I mean, that's them people. That's how they do. I can't tell them how to carry out their struggle. Hell, I can't even tell my own people how to carry out our struggle. So I know I can't tell no other people how best to do their struggle. But this Native American elder said that the black Hebrews came there and they was like, it's going to be a whole heap of white folks for me to scream at, for me to call devils, for me to spit biblical verses, for me to regurgitate the very Bible they imposed on my ancestors that I've taken and remixed and reworked, because the Bible is fake, it's fiction, so there's no God, so you can make up what you want. You can extract from it what you want without any divine or supernatural consequences. There might be some material, worldly consequences, but whatever. Anyway, these Hebrew Israelites went out there and screamed at them, called them crackers, called them peckerwood, called them white devils. And so what the Native American elder who was interviewed by Amy Goodman on Democracy Now!, he said that they called out one or two of these white boys. So then the white boy went and got a couple of dozen more white boys. And the black Hebrews were still, you cracker, you hunky, you white devil. So then the 20 white boys went and they came back, it was 65 white boys. And they said, you crackers, you hunkies, you devil. So the 65 white boys went and they came back with 100 white boys. And they was like, you cracker, you honky, come on, I'm going to say it. So then eventually, it was over 200 white boys confronting these black Hebrews. And the black Hebrews was like, as I said, I digress. He took a spritz, he sucked on a lemon wedge, me. Let me say again, you crackers, you honkies, you white devils. And so what do these white boys do? Did they jump on the black Hebrews, the Yahweh Rangers? Nah. Some of them brothers, them some bumpy, rusty knuckle cats, man. I've had to debate with them. They don't back down. They don't back down. I've had the Hebrews, I've bumped heads with Hebrews in NYC, KC. I've avoided them here. Thank God. Let me shamalama do my ham on. I've yet to have any black Hebrews in my sphere here. But when I was in New York in college, I was actually curious. They put out these pamphlets talking about all these biblical figures were black. Abraham, Noah, King Solomon, John the Baptist, all black. And I'm like, wow, this is interesting. I'm black. Well, let me find out some black people. But anyway, then by the time I went back to Kansas City with my wife and family, I had pretty much hip to the scheme. But I was still, they've infused, some of the Hebrews infused some of their teachings with Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and pro-blackness. And so I tried to, but anyway, that's not what I'm talking about. But did these 200 MAGA white boys, these Catholic teenagers, burly white boys, 200 of them, and they said it was like half a dozen black Hebrew Israelites. But these half a dozen black Hebrewites really riled up these white boys and sent them into a fury. And so what did they decide to do? They decided to go bum rush some Native American elders. Well, then they said the Native American elders said that this was a emerging conflict. And the Hebrews, the half dozen Hebrews, wouldn't back down from these 200 white boys. And so the Native Americans thought that his song, because, I don't know the song, but he said it was a wordless song. He actually performed the song. If you want to hear it, it's on the Democracy Now! Website. It's actually quite a beautiful song. I'm not even going to try to do it because it might seem like a mockery, but they have songs of chants and sounds, but no words. And he performed the song live on the air, and it was I listened to it in its entirety. But he said it was a peace song. It was a song, he said, about the slaughter of a lynching of a Native American. And he thought that when that Native American was lynched, nobody stood up. So he thought he would stand up because, I don't know, he said the black race, he called the black Hebrews black racists. So obviously somebody needs to sit this elder down and explain to him what racism. He's lived under racism all his life. He served in the military in the 70s or 60s. He should know what racism is. It ain't a bunch of black brothers standing on milk crates screaming in obscenities to white boys. That's not racism. But anyway, old dude got up there and started playing the song. And he said the white boys turned their attention to the natives and started doing this tomahawk thing and fake Indian chants and all this racist behavior towards the natives who weren't beefing. They totally left the black Hebrews alone after that. And so the natives was like, this ain't working. The elder was like, this is some bull. So he said, I gotta go. And then that smug, I mean, this is the whitest kid. This is that white dude, the whitest kid. I mean, the kid that was standing there with that satanic grin. Oh my God, could it get any white? Doesn't get any whiter than that. I mean, oh, I just looking at it. I mean, man, boy, I'd probably have to let these hands fly. If he, man, anyway, just looking at that smirk on his face, man, just backhand the crap out. Anyway, I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't call it. But anyway, he said that he decided, hey, yo, I'm just going to let me get out of this. I tried to get in between these people. I tried to intervene. These people obviously don't want peace. They don't want any intervention. And he said the white boy wouldn't let him go. But then the white boy released a statement from a PR company, a written statement from a PR company saying that he was standing there smirking in the native elder's face because he wanted to bring peace. And he said he was smirking in his face because he felt that if he smiled in the native elder's face, then that would allow the native to know that he didn't come there to do him harm, and he was actually a peacemaker. This little cracker will make a wonderful, wonderful politician. Him and Trump are lying, and Trump has invited these little racist crackers to the White House. So it's about to get good. This ain't over yet. It ain't over yet. It's about to get good. Keep your eyes open. Anyway, moving on from that, what I wanted to talk about, and this is couldn't pick a better, more perfect segue. A more perfect segue into the topic for today. And the topic for today is, why is this on? The topic for today is the right-wing awakening, or right-wing revival. We're talking about the right-wing revival. And the reason I want to talk about Kavanaugh, thank you, Internet. Yeah, I was talking about Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. The Talmud, yes, the Talmudic, yes. So when you go back in the show, if you're listening to the show years later, insert Kavanaugh when I was trying to think of it, and insert the Talmud when I was trying to think of the other thing. I should keep this up on the screen. But I continue to digress. I think black people need to understand what's going on with white folks. Dick Gregory told us to study white folks. My great-grandma Bowie said, stay out of white folks' business and tend to your own. So these two, we have to find a happy balance between staying out of white folks' business, yet studying and understanding white folks. Why do we need to stay out of white folks' business? Because when you get caught up and entangled in white folks' business, you tend to neglect your own business, or your own business tends to become distorted. We tend to think our astronauts, our military, our country. And while black folks have, since we got off the plantation, have been loyal, patriotic servants of the America and tried to be deemed and demonstrate our willingness to be good citizens of America, we always find out that when America makes plans for America, they don't really include us. We fought for inclusion, we marched for inclusion, we got sprayed with water hose for inclusion, but it's basically a toxic relationship. You know, and every time they do a study, Whether they do a study on housing, on education, on policing, on healthcare delivery, whenever they do a study to examine racial disparities, they always find them. I've never heard, the government or some private institution or some academic institution did some study to look at law enforcement, to look at housing, and found that black people are treated just like everybody else. In this discussion, signed, sealed, delivered, it's done. Every single time they look for anti-black discrimination, every time they look for racism, they find it. I don't know why they're looking for it anymore. I think studying discrimination, getting statistics on discrimination and racial aggression, racial hostility, no, I think it's better to study the psychopathology, the psychopathic racial personality, Yurugu, because it's there. It's always been there. It hasn't waned or gone away. Only thing that changes is their methods for aggressing. So let's study the psychology, the environment, the development, the techniques, the culture. What the hell is defective about these people that make them so predatory against other people? That's just me though. But I ain't got no money to fund the studies. I ain't building Melinda Gates Foundation. Who gets you fund it? But then they say if you fund the studies, you dictate the outcome. So that's another issue. Academic dishonesty. But I digress. Anyway, we have to look at white folks. Not for any other reason than we're very vulnerable. Dr. Bobby Wright said, slavery is the state when all of your life-sustaining institutions are under the control of another people. That's the state of slavery. And I don't care if you draw a rage. I don't care if you're allowed to vote. I don't care if you're allowed to intermarry with that other group that controls the life-sustaining institutions and resources. Because the enslaver, if you go all the way back to the Greco-Roman era, or up, and you ain't got to go back that far, the enslaver can dictate or lay out wide-ranging terms and conditions for what the slave can or can't do. I mean, one thing they all agreed to, that you cannot control or have ownership of your own institutions. You cannot have autonomy or self-determination. But within lacking autonomy and self-determination, you could even become a billionaire, found your own TV network, become the president or general, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But if you buy into Dr. Bobby Wright's definition of slavery, we're still slaves. So we are very vulnerable, and we have this complex, interdependent, toxic, predatory relationship with the people that we have to watch their trends. We have to pay attention to where they're going, with or without us. Whether we're on the bus, in the back of the bus, the front of the bus, driving the bus, or we standing on the corner watching them on their exclusive bus. We should know this. And it should inform our actions or reactions or lack of actions. And I know it would like to say, some black people say, we conscious, we just need to focus on black folks. But then again, that is yet another manipulation. It's doing the right thing for the wrong reason that's going to have a horrible outcome. So anyway, where are we today? What's going on? Is what's his name? Marvin Gaye or Speech? What's going on with white folks? What's up, white folks? What's up, white folks? Well, what we are finding, what we are observing, is that across the white world, from Australia to New Zealand to Central, Eastern, Western Europe, not so much Canada, believe it or not, through Latin America, and yes, Latin America is white. Colombia, Argentina is white. I don't know why we think Spanish is not a European. I don't know when Spanish became a native language, a non-European language. I don't know when the white conquistadors who came and invaded Latin America, Central America, the Caribbean, the Spaniards who came here, raped, pillaged, murdered, enslaved, when did they become non-white? I don't get it. But anyway, a lot of times when we're talking about white countries, we leave out Venezuela, El Modelo, Argentina under El Modelo, Brazil, and Latin America is so damn white that most of the Nazis who got away ran to Latin America. The boys of Brazil, the Nazis got to Latin America and were very cozy there until the Zionists came and snatched some of them. They got along quite well because of the racist hierarchy and the racist culture and the Eurocentric Western culture that is Latin America. And I know there's a lot of white people who parade around being racist against the native Latin America, the native South Americans, the African descendants of the Africans who were brought there in chains. They parade around being white as they want to be in Latin America. Then they come into the United States and all of a sudden they're no longer white. They're Latino, they're Hispanic, and they get to call us niggas. Immortal Technique, Cardi B. They get to be us. But then as soon as they cross that southern border, voila, you're white again. Don't get mad at me. I didn't set up this. I understand racism is a construct and all y'all high-minded black folk. But by the time a construct can get your ass killed, you can't just dismiss it anymore. You have to deconstruct that construct and all the institutions that support that construct before you can just dismiss it as a construct. By the time it can get your ass killed. A car is a construct. It can run your ass down. It's an invention. It's an artificially man-made thing that has no biological origins. But if that car, you better remove the tires of that car, take out the engine and drain the gas from it before you can just dismiss that car, so to speak. I don't know how good that metaphor works, but it works in my head. I don't know what it does for you. If it doesn't work, then I apologize. It makes perfect sense to me. So, all over the world, the white world, including Latin America. I'm sorry to go down that rabbit hole. Some people complain about my rabbit holes, but then every time I say, okay, let me stop with these rabbit holes, other people are like, no, they're pretty informative or entertaining, and to say the least. Some people give me the pat on the head, a pat on the back. Other people want to kick me in my butt. I don't know what I can do. I just try to balance it. I try to I'm going to bring, next time I come to the show, I'm going to burn some sage. I don't know if the studio will allow that. I might get fired. But I'm going to burn some sage. Somebody, I don't have any crystals. I got magnets. What do y'all do with magnets? Magnets ain't hot in the street anymore. I remember when the spiritualists were really hot with magnets. But now crystals have taken over magnets. It's hard out here in these spiritual streets. You know, you never know what's up. But anyway, this is a true rabbit hole digress. I digress. I apologize. Back to the topic at hand. The white world has gone to the right. White, right. Right wing. And there are many people who are greatly alarmed. Blacks and white progressives, white liberals, and white radicals are greatly alarmed that the world is coming under a cloud of right-wing populism. And it's quite ironic that the Western world, Western hegemony, the systems and institutions of global white domination go through this pendular swings. Western culture and Western society is a pendular society. It is a rapidly changing, a rapidly evolving society, where you have other societies that are not so, and we're so used to living under the tyranny of Western oppression. We can't really conceptualize cultures that don't have the same value system. Like the value of progress, look to the future of perpetual development and a perpetually expanding economy and material accumulation. A lot of these things we see as just basic human natures are alien to most cultures prior to white people invading their lands, enslaving, raping, killing, and imposing their culture and systems and languages. So it's somewhat alien. But there were cultures that, by our standards, we would call stagnant. For literally thousands of years, they had no progress. They introduced no new technology. They didn't accumulate wealth. They didn't cut down the forest and build up the civilization. And so Europeans came and saw this and were like, look at these primitive people. Why haven't they cut down their forests? Why haven't they killed off the jaguar? Why haven't they killed off the Nile crocodile? Why haven't they killed off the lion? Progress! Ah! Why haven't they turned all of their natural resources into commodities and sell, buy, and trade them amongst each other? And I know I shouldn't attempt to tell this story, but before I go into the right-wing awakening, the right-wing revival of white folks and what it means for black people, there's a story I heard, and every time I tell it, I leave part of it out. I got to find it written down somewhere. This is way back in maybe 93, I read this. But there was a black man sitting under a coconut tree. And a white man came to him and said, black man. I'm sure he didn't say black man. I don't know. It depends. If the white man had a gun and an army behind him, maybe he said monkey or nigger. But if it was just a black man and a white man, I'm sure he was like, hey, kind gentle sir. They know how to act when there's a situation of mutually assured destruction. But I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Anyway, let me tell this story. And I think you should teach this story to the children. This really gives some insight on the lunacy of Western culture. Came to a black man sitting under a coconut tree and said, black man, why are you sitting under that coconut tree? He said, you should be out developing your economy. And he's like, I don't understand what you mean. He said, what you need to do is to cut down all these trees. He said, why would I cut down all these trees? He said, so you can turn them into commodities. He's like, why would I want to turn them into commodities? He said, so you could sell them on a market. He said, why would I want to sell them on a market? So he said, you can generate a profit. He says, why would I want to generate a profit? He said, so you can buy luxuries. He said, why would I buy luxuries? He said, because once you've done all that and you've built all that, then you'll be able to relax and sit under a coconut tree. If you want to live a life of leisure, if you want to live a life of comfort, you do all this economic development and then you can relax. But he's like, I'm already under the coconut tree without industry, without commodities, without profit, without development. So I do all this hard work to do what I'm doing now to freaking be able to relax in a tropical environment. Because that's what they do. They do all this hard work to go sit on the beach. And they take selfies. Oh, I'm on the beach drinking pina colada. Look at this. I'm living the good life. Like, you could have sat on the beach without destroying the ecosystem and robbing and raping and pillaging and imperialism and warfare. But anyway, I know I'm not telling the story right, but that story stuck with me. Every time I retell it, I mess it up a little bit more. So somebody find that. I don't even know the title of it. I just read it, and it was just a pass. I think I read it in some radical indie magazine. But anyway, further digression. White people are going right-wing. And I said, they have a pendular society. Unlike African, Native American, and other non-Western oriented societies that didn't have this perpetual ongoing progress, accumulation, domination, expansion. And so when the expansionist cultures came into contact with the balanced, what they would call regressive or primitive cultures, they took them over and killed them because they had the capacity and will to do so. And so with all this progress creates this psychological and social instability. It creates a lot of insanity. Trump is literally a madman. And the people and there was some guru, some financial guru, who would go around and tell people, people would pay him thousands of dollars to teach them how to become rich. And he said, if you want to be rich in America, you got to be a little crazy. You got to be sick because the economy dictates that you do. To be able to think like a capitalist or think like an entrepreneur, to calculate every movement about how to extract more than what you put in, that's the sixth state of being. So when people tell you madness, there's a certain level of madness in this. He said, don't reject the madness. Don't try to heal your madness. What you do is try to rework your madness, your psychopathology, in such a way that will generate you profit. And he would go and teach people how to turn their psychopathology into profit. If you are an excessive, compulsive person, if you are a person who was devoid of human empathy, if you are a person that had delusions of grandeur, then all of those things that they tell us that are bad, that we should try to cure, are actually assets within capitalism. It is a mad system. It is a dog-eat-dog cannibalistic system. And the cannibalistic madmen will succeed. You look at Mark Zuckerberg and look at him. Everybody says, yeah, this dude definitely has some deep psychological issues. Steve Jobs was a madman. You know, it used to be in traditional cultures, greedy people were seen as some of the most sick, insane people. Not only did you not allow them to lead the community, to lead the nation, to head up the tribe, the greedy people were often outcast. They were sent to the shaman to say, what is wrong with you? Why do you want more than what you need? But now greed is good. Greedy people are the captive. You know, it's sickness. And that's why a lot of this time, people you find sitting on park benches, the homeless people, the poor people, they're some of the most grounded, stable people. While these rich people, they smoke, the affluent people do the most drugs, get the most plastic surgery, go to the most therapy. They're out of their damn minds. And it's an asset. Madness is an asset. The sicker you are, the more potential for growth and prosperity you'll have in a system that is also sick and toxic. But I digress. We just black folks, we got to understand the pendular nation of this society. And the reason we got to understand the pendular nation of this society, and by pendular I mean it swings one extreme and then it swings back to the other extreme. And it just keeps swinging back and forth. Where you never, so one thing we have to understand, as long as white people are in control, we're never secure. I don't care how many beautiful laws, and let me tell you something, the Constitution is beautifully written. And the reason it's so beautifully written is because it's not a white document. It is plagiarized from the Iroquois Confederacy. Native Americans taught white folks how to govern in equality. The concept of all men being created equal is not a Western concept. Or there are some Western philosophers and thinkers. When you want to look at how white people imagine government, you got to look at Hobbes. You got to go read Leviathan. Leviathan is how white people structure governments, imagine governments and social relations. Tyrannical governments. But they were like, well, you know, we just defeated the king, and we don't want to create another king. We want all the benefits of a kingdom, of an oligarchy, but we don't want it to look that way because we look mad contradictory after we got all these black slaves and white peasants, white serfs, to fight for our freedom, quote unquote. If you're not watching me live, I threw up air quotes when I said freedom and quote unquote liberty. I can't even say the word in this country. So anyway, they wanted to they had to set up a system that sounded good but functioned bad. All men, we say, and you know, the preamble to the Constitution and then the laws. It's a very short document. Constitution. I got a degree. My undergrad was in political science, and I had to take an exam on the U.S. Constitution and the state constitution. And there's some good stuff in there. I'm like, wow, I don't know why we don't use this. I guess because they shoot us down, slap us down when we try to. But anyway, like the Illinois Constitution, the function of the government, it states the sole primary purpose of the Illinois government is to reduce and end poverty, not to create wealth, but to end poverty. I'm like, wow, you know, every single elected official is in violation of the state constitution. Let's burn down Springfield. But I digress. So we're never stable, no matter how many beautiful laws they write, no matter how many liberal presidents they elect, how many reforms they pass. You can always know it's good for now. It's all good. We getting good jobs. We got a black president. We got Kamala Harris got a black woman on the ballot for the Democratic Party. Woo, it's all good. Understand, always be ready for that pendulum swing. So whenever the society opens up a little bit, you need to be fighting like hell under that small bit of opening to get completely liberated from this system and dismantle this system from within and without. Because you know inevitably it's going to swing back the other way with more force than it swung that way. So even now, people, especially cisgendered, heterosexual people like myself, you got a straight pride movement to say the gays got it all good. Everything, being gay is favored, and the feminine men are taking over, and manly man and rusty knuckle oil smell of motor oil and must. Us real men, we got a bad time going, and the gays got it all good. If you just look at history, whether the roaring or the gay 20s, there's always a time where times of sexual liberation and then times of sexual conservatism in America. So you had women dancing down the streets in short skirts, and then you got the what do they call it? The religious reformation movement where women are brought sent back down. So you have times where feminine men are wearing powdered wigs and lipstick in the streets, and then all of a sudden they're being tarred and feathered and persecuted, and now they're back again. And we even just had yesterday a gay man announced that he's going to run for president of the United States, and he might be a viable candidate. But the pendulum is going to sweep the other way. So even gay folks, yeah, it's all good. I know it's not all good. I mean, it's not all good to be. There's still black men and trans women and all these black folks still suffering real persecution for their sexual orientations or their gender identities or whatever. But let's, just for the sake of Dr. Umar, let's pretend that gays have just got it all good. It's a utopia. America is a utopia for gays and transgender lesbians and everybody. You gotta know that the pendulum is already swinging in the severe backlash. So we'll be back to tar and feather and gays. Just live long enough, get off the swine, go vegan, all of you right-wing Puritans, and you'll be able to openly persecute gays yet again. Because it's a pendular society, so you're never safe. The only time you can be totally safe is that if the systems and institutions of white domination are completely dismantled. Reforming the systems and institutions is always a temporary thing. It's going to swing back the other way. Or as Del Jones called it, it's not even a pendular swing. He said you loosen up to get a tighter grip. Sometimes when you got hold of something, you ever watch a guy, he's holding a baseball bat and then he wiggles his fingers. He opens his fingers and he clenches the bat again. Then he wiggles his fingers and clench and adjusts his grip. Sometimes he chokes up on the bat. Sometimes he loosens up on the bat. It's not because, so when you see him wiggling his fingers, choking up or loosening up on the bat, it's not so he can let the bat go. It's so he can get a tighter grip, so he can have a firmer grip. So he says a lot of times in America, Del Jones said in his study of American culture and American politics and American history, that a lot of times our oppressors will loosen up, give us a reformation, or give us reconstruction, give us civil rights laws, allow black people to elevate, selected black individuals to elevate in the society. That's loosening up to further, and just like when Obama is elected, we go further down, loosen up to get a tighter grip. It's a wonderful trick. And the moment they loosen up, black people, we start to leave black organizations. We start to talk about, like Oprah told us, the only color that matters in America is green. Black and white don't matter. It's all about the green because they loosened up. They let Oprah get $1 billion. That's a loosening up. And then we turn around after 2 decades of Oprah, our collective wealth is diminished. Her personal wealth is good, but our collective standing and wealth is diminished. They had Oprah on TV supposedly talking about the serious issues of our time. We find out after 20 years of watching Oprah, you're less informed or you're miseducated. That's called loosening up. And I don't want to pick on Oprah. I could go Obama, whoever. I don't want to talk about these obscure Michael Sowell and all these obscure black conservative Uncle Tom handkerchief heads. I like to talk about the people I assume most people know who I'm talking about. But I can impress y'all with all these obscure backstabbing, the stepping, fetching Uncle Tom handkerchief head Negroes. I could go there too, if we got to. But so, what I'm saying is, I'll say it again. We ain't never been secure. Or, to quote Bobby Wright, we ain't never been safe in this country. Even with all the Thomas Sowell. Right, did I say Michael? I'm thinking of, right, Thomas Sowell. I digress. So, understanding the pendular nature of the society, it is imperative that black people always have a segment of our movement, the conscious revolutionary black people, to collect intelligence on the social, political, economic trends of our oppressor. Anybody saying, you gotta ignore the white people, let's focus on black people, that is not an educator, that is not a leader, that is a demagogue manipulator. We watch them. And so now we see there's this right-wing awakening that is not just in America, but in Great Britain and across the right world. Why? What does it mean? What the hell is even right-wing? I didn't talk myself off a cliff. My time ain't looking good, but I'm going to trudge through. But this whole concept of the right and left ring hasn't been around for very long. Because there was a time where in European society, there was no right or left. There was no liberal conservative. You had the oligarchs and the peasants. You had the monarchs and the peasants. There weren't even any citizens. So the political sway, whatever the politics at the time was whatever the hell the king said. If you had a king that was a warrior king, then your society was a war society. If you had a party king, then you had a party society. It was whatever the king's whim was. That was monarchy. It wasn't even like, unlike the primitive tribal societies of Africa, the eldership based, or in the Native America. No. Europeans had this silly, most obscene. That's why I don't like black people talking that king and queen stuff. Because most of them, when they talk king and queen, they talk about a European perspective. They weren't kings and queens in Africa. They weren't monarchs in Africa. Now, when Europeans came and they were like, take me to your leader, and they, well, in terms of, this is who. They came up with this concept called chiefs and called, oh, you must be the king of your people. In this council of elders and all that, they didn't understand the complex, well-developed, humane systems of governance and leadership in Africa and the New World. So they just imposed their definition. That's the king, that's the queen, those are slaves. And now more liberal, honest historians are starting to say, yeah, the European terms, when Europeans got to Africa, the New World, and started labeling people kings and queens and slaves and serfs, that had no real translation. Instead of accepting how the people define themselves, they impose definitions, which gives us a distorted view of history. But I digress. So we're still learning. Or we're still recovering the knowledge that was raped and stolen from us under the Ma'afa. So the kings and queens, but in the 1789, you had the French Revolution. And that's one of the first times in European cultures where you had the left and the right wing, where the people or common governance well, it wasn't even the people. It still wasn't the serfs. You had the noblemen, and then you had the merchant class. They started to say, listen, we're not just going to have some one dude sit up here and tell us how to govern the society. Let's just have 12 or 20 dudes. I guess that's an improvement. And they had this mythology about Greek and Roman democracy. That was never a democracy. It was a slave-based society, just like the United States. Their democracy is when all the elites get a say in how to govern. Their democracy is not when all citizens get a say in how to govern. That's our delusions, our illusions about democracy. So anyway, that's the first time you had a left, and it was literally on a tennis court. You had people who wanted to return to the monarchy, who wanted to go back to the way things were, and then you had the Republicans, the monarchists and the Republicans, saying that we should establish laws that all people should have to adhere to, even the king. And we should have a law governing us as opposed to an individual governing us. That was the left. And they sat on the left side of the tennis court, and then the right people, the monarchists, sat on the right tennis court. And that's how we came with this concept, the left wing of politics and the right wing of politics. Just white, arbitrary as hell. It's a relatively new concept. Barely 200 years old, left wing, right wing. But now it dictates almost everything. Everybody, even when you want to hook up with a lady, hey baby, how you doing? She want to know your politics. Do you love Obama like I love Obama? Or you meet a sister, hey baby, do you love Jesus? If she loves Obama, she's a liberal or leftist. She loves Jesus. She wants to have threesomes with Jesus. And she could be more of a conservative slant. But we define each other by these arbitrary white terms. And in that time, an overview, the conservative, the right wing, is basically seeks to return to an illusionary past. They want to preserve the status quo. Whereas in their exclusive, they're pro-military, they're pro-establishment, which doesn't make any sense. Ultimately, the left wing and the right wing, conservative, liberal, really have no meaning aside from mass manipulation and control. That's really the purpose of it. But again, because these illusionary distortions and concepts, people die in the name of God. Even though God is fiction. People die in the name of left wing, right wing politics, even though the left and right, conservative, liberal is fiction. But when somebody who has a severe delusion in their head and they have a gun pointed at you, you can't just discount that delusion. You better understand in depth what kind of delusion they have. until you can disarm them. Once they're disarmed and they could go sit in the corner and babble to themselves, it doesn't matter. But when that crazy babbler in the corner picks up a gun or secures authority over the state, then you better like, wait, okay, what are your delusions again? You better be able to dissect and understand and recognize the patterns within the madness. And so anyway, you had times where the systems and institutions of global white domination were leftist or liberal. Or some of the agencies within the system, like the CIA, thanks to the feminist leader, Gloria Steinem, who was a CIA asset. She said when she was first approached to work for the CIA, she was like, well, I'm a progressive. I'm a liberal. I'm for societal reform. So how can I go work with the CIA? And she stated in her own words publicly that she was pleasantly surprised to find out when she started working for and within the CIA that the CIA was full of people who thought just like her, that were very liberal and progressive and reform-minded, that they weren't these right-wing conservative Christian evangelicals. And now we're finding out that the FBI has a lot of progressive liberals. And I know when we think about FBI and CIAs and we think of these starched shirt G-men, but you know, the man who literally built the FBI from scratch, we know that he used to like to wear dresses. You know, he would have fit right in with a modern society. He would have, come out the college. He'd be literally a LGBTQ. He'd be leading the Stonewall riots or head of the Pride Parade. At the same time, with his very liberal lifestyle, with his very alternative lifestyle, he was a violent, murderous defender of the conservative status quo. So at the time of liberals simply understand, and really for our understanding, liberalism simply means that white people, liberal whites, believe everybody should be given the opportunity to be white. So you should allow LGBTQ, disabled people, people of color and diverse background. Everybody should be able to have an opportunity to be white. You should be able to be a black man to come in and govern the state in an imperial way. You should be able to have black CEOs or transgender movie directors and all this stuff. And you can be as diverse as you want to be as long as you serve the fundamental status quo. So they want diverse people to maintain a very specific system of power. And many of us fall for that. And we celebrate. They just had a black woman became the first Marine general. Yay! We got a black woman heading up the Heritage Foundation. Yay! Like I just said, we had a first openly homosexual man announce his candidacy for the presidency of the... Yay! Whereas conservatives say, no, we want exclusive. We don't want to give everybody a right to be white. We don't want Mexicans coming across the borders. We don't want black men in the White House being the president. We want exclusive. That's pretty much it. Because the other rhetoric about conservative, remember, conservative means that they're very fiscally responsible. But Trump just kicked the debt up to over, $2 trillion just in his brief time in office. Republicans and the conservatives have proven themselves not to be fiscal. And then, remember the whole moral majority? Remember, conservatives are supposed to be moral. And every time you look under a bed, you see a Republican under the mattress with a twink. Some anti-gay Christian evangelical conservative Republican got some boy under the mattress. Wearing women's stockings under his Brooks Brothers suit. They freaky deaky as hell. They just elected a man president that then got 3 baby mamas and grabbing pussies. So everything else you hear about, and then the whole thing about the liberals too. The Me Too movement, when white women snatched the Me Too movement away from a black woman and thought the only people that are real victims are wealthy, affluent white women are the only people who could be true victims. See what I'm saying? Used to have the guy around Kansas City. He would say, you see what I'm saying, but he would say, saying. So we in my neighborhood, we started saying, instead of see what I'm saying. So white people were under the delusions. A vast majority of white people in America were under the delusion that America was being taken over by the left. And by the left, they meant that gays, blacks, immigrants, Jews, all of these people who were not white Christian Protestants, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, that there was this liberal pope running around, got rid of the Nazi pope and put some old Mexican pope in there. So the white majority were under the delusion that they were losing America. And you go to these Tea Party rallies and they'd be there crying, I want my country back. We got to take back America. Ooh. And they thought that America was being stolen from them by blacks, by gays, and LBG2, the whole night. When I say the gay, I just, I don't want to run the alphabet. But LGBTQAI, all of y'all just gay for this discussion, for the sake of time. So they decided we're going to go back to the right. We have to retreat. As Obama accurately said, they have to retreat to their guns and their Bibles. Obama called them out. Obama had one moment of where he was outside himself, and he told the truth. He said a lot of times when white people feel insecure, they like to scapegoat vulnerable people, and they retreat to their Bibles and their guns. So white people all over the world, white people in France are like, listen, we used to live good, free healthcare, free education, affluent society. Some of the longest paid vacations in the world. And we're losing this. We're living like black people. They got us living like third world trash. So they're in rebellion. Who can save us? And they blame all of this on liberalism. Now, even though they had everybody, Karl Marx and Lenin, they had all these great white philosophers, even I ain't got to go back that far. Howard Zinn, Noam Chomsky, Norman Finkelstein. You had all these white men basically telling white people, no, here's your real threat. It's the white oligarchs. It's the multinational corporations. It's the very systems that you put up. The systems you don't like, all these immigrants. The immigrants are coming to this country because you have created circumstances in your country to exploit their country. And all you got to do is draw back the empire and people will go. The Italian prime minister just said that a lot of immigration is driven by imperialism. White people, self-inflicted wound. You don't like people of color, people who don't speak American in America? It's very easy. Remember when Aristide was elected in Haiti and the Haitian boat people stopped coming? Not because they got money, not because it was all, but they were like, now we have some independence. And we rather go struggle in poverty for our own independence than come and sweep your floors and mop your toilets for crumbs and disrespect. So the Haitians not only stopped coming here, the migration reversed. And Haitian physicians and Haitian professionals and artists started going back to Haiti to build up Haiti. And Bill Clinton went and blew it up. He literally kidnapped the president and supported a coup d'etat. And then here come the Haitian boat people, and the same white people are like, oh, here come these Haitians. And so white people are suffering the direct consequences of their own actions, and now they want to double down on this. And so when white people go to the right, it's no longer an inclusive empire, it's an exclusive empire. And then they don't even start to divide amongst from blacks and whites and divide amongst gender identity. They start to divide amongst white on white. The Mormons are divided from the Protestant, and the Protestants are against the Jews, even though they're all right-wing conservatives. Now you got Brexit, wants to leave the European Union. You got Greece, the mother of white civilization. And Greece is getting pimped by Germany, and Greece has got hostility towards Germany. And then you even internally, the Catalonians don't want to be part of Spain no more. So all of this right wing, what happened the last time white folks went to this same fervor? The white imperialists brought a little taste of the exploitation back to Europe. And the European peasants, who are ignorant, who are heavily indoctrinated, who never seem to be able to listen to their true leaders, their true honest revolutionaries, but always listen to their demagogues and saying your problem is everybody but me. And it's a true problem. If white folks really wanted justice, they would bring the guillotine out for the white elites, for the Trumps, like they did in the French Revolution. But they want to rather build walls, and we're on the precipice of a grand global conflict because these conservatives are anti-intellectual, they're anti-academic, they live in a world made on fantasy, a world of make-believe. They really believe that their wealth is not based on exploitation, rape, and theft, but their wealth is based on their hard work and sacrifice. They really don't understand how most white people live by off welfare. Most corporations live off welfare. White people don't understand the government, like race, is invisible to them. When something is really working for you, it becomes invisible to you. So they think that they can tear down the government. They think that their race has no impact. It's all their hard work and sacrifice and their high moral standards. And they'll sit there and believe that with the meth pipe in their mouth. So when you have all these weapons, all this aggression, coupled with a very deep delusions about how the world is structured, you have a perfect formula for massive warfare and conflict. And I'm not even talking about them attacking us. They attack us when times are good. So that's a given. I'm talking about them attacking each other. I'm talking about warfare across continents. I'm talking about World War III. And it was the same thing. If you look at World War I and World War II, there's really no rational explanation for them. It's just white tribalism. When white people go back to the right, they become very tribalistic. And when we become tribalistic, they call it tribal warfare. But when they start acting in a tribalistic way, we call it world war because they're the people that matter. So black people, as white people start to cannibalize themselves, as white people start to attack each other and everything around them, as they start to try to build walls, as they start to break down European Union, as they start to dissolve NATO, as they start to build up their armaments, as they start to point fingers in all directions except at themselves, where do we stand in all this? How did we fare in World War I? We went into World War I under Jim Crow. We came out of World War I in Jim Crow. We went into World War II in Jim Crow. We came out of World War II in Jim Crow. So just because white folks decide to start to mass slaughter each other or to divide amongst each other doesn't really fare well for us. We got these wonderful slogans, my enemy's enemy. There are some people. I say that we should be organizing with the understanding of ecological collapse, European and Western world and capitalist disintegration. Not just disintegrate, but disintegration, meaning that they start to deliberately unravel their economic ties and even their cultural ties and loyalties become unraveled. Now, they might shore this up. In the next election cycle, you might get some truly competent bureaucrats. You might get I got a call. Let me answer this call before I go off the air. Caller, you're on the Bro Diallo show. State your name and alias, where you're calling from. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, you're live on the Bro Diallo show.
Hi, my name is Laura. How you doing, Brother Diallo? I am calling from Taiwan.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hi, how you doing?
I'm well, I'm well.
I've been pretty busy, but I just wanted to catch up with you. It's not too often that I call into your show. I really appreciate your efforts here, and I have a question for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
It may be a little bit off topic, what you're talking about now, but I am trying to figure out. So, what are the what are the priorities that we should be focused on in African people's fight for liberation? I mean, I understand it's not a linear struggle. Everybody has something to contribute to it. But what are the one or two or three impediments or struggles that really are a bottleneck for us? Like I'm in the education. I focus on education in my company, and I want to do something that will get us past will come what do you think are the priorities for us right now? What do I see from there? So,
Okay. All right, I'm gonna because it's almost time for me to go off the air. I appreciate you calling, and you have my contact information, but I'm gonna touch on that, but I'll go into depth on that for Friday's show. Definitely, okay? If I don't, because I really don't have time, because that's a wonderful question. I want to do it justice. Yeah, we got a poor connection. Yeah, it made me cut. I'm Skype ain't feeling me right now. But I got your question about what are the priorities, the core issues, and the core solutions. What are the top one, two, three priorities that Black people should focus on? I think that's a wonderful question, and I'm going to have to table that until Friday morning's show. I'll lead with that from the call. I really appreciate you calling, and I saw your email. Please continue to stay and keep up with me. You know, I don't really have secretaries or interns. It's all me. It's a one-man band over here. So if I drop your contact, please don't hold it against me, and please try to keep up and get back at me, because I really do value the input, and I need the connection and support. So we will start off talking about priorities. But I also have a series of radical analysis and practical revolution, a 3-point radio broadcast series that I did that touch on that. But I don't mind going over that. I could talk about that every day, all day, if we must. So I definitely will table your question and answer it, because I only have 5 minutes left. Really, I should be signing off already. But anyway, conservatism. I hope I got to it. You know, that white people's turn towards conservatism and massive conflict does not directly translate into any type of liberation or freedom for us, but we can take these crises, take this pendular swing, and turn it to our advantage if we are properly organized. And we will talk about that and the priorities that we should make with these understanding and analysis. Bro Diallo, Q4 Radio, AM 1680. I will be back Friday morning, and this weekend will be the return of the Q&A with Bro Diallo, so that you can ask me specific questions that we don't have time to get to on the air. But until then, I'm signing off. Please go to Patreon, make contributions if you can to help sustain us on the air and to expand our efforts for a Black archives, Pan-African research, and Pan-African media, progressive media. Peace.